to EMC. In today's presentation, we're going to be discussing the AppXtender Connector. So what is the AppXtender Connector? Well, it's a small application that allows a seamless integration between AppXtender and third-party application. At EMC, we found that many of our customers wanted to integrate their content management suite with their accounting programs and other software that's on their network. The AppXtender Connector is an out-of-the-box tool that allows that integration with no programming code required. This tool can capture index information from external sources and use that index information to perform content management operations like a query or uploading a document. The AX connector also includes a module called the Document Writer. And this component allows you to print documents either into PDF or TIFF format directly into the AppXtender content repository. Now, there are two ways to run the AppXtender Connector on a client workstation. You could enable it as a floating toolbar, as you see on the screen, with several buttons that allow the user's options to perform tasks. You can also minimize the connector so that it sits transparently as a system tray icon over here on the right. And when users need to perform one of the tasks associated with the AppXtender Connector, they can either right-click and select that task, or if the user prefers, they can launch this as a floating toolbar. And that way the buttons are easily accessible from this toolbar at any time they need them. The out-of-the-box installation for the AppXtender Connector comes pre-configured with two tasks that the users can take advantage of. The first task on the toolbar is an ad hoc query task. Now, this will allow a user to query the content repository and search for any document that's currently stored within that content repository that they have the rights to access. The second tool is an upload task, which will allow users to upload documents into the repository. So users no longer need to launch a full client interface into the back-end content repository. These two items and the AppXtender Connector give them transparent access to that back-end repository from within the Microsoft Windows interface. And let's explore the ad hoc query tool. When I click this toolbar item, the AppXtender Connector presents the users with a screen. On the screen, they will select the store or the database that they want to query for the documents. From the content type, they will select the container or application where the documents are stored. A user can perform a new query, or a user could select a saved query that was previously configured in the system. If they choose to select query, they can enter values in the query fields. They can do a range of values. Maybe they want between, less than, greater than if they're doing a date search, or a list search for items like invoice number 100, 200, and 300. Users can perform their queries. They can also select to include previous document revisions in the result set. When a user clicks the search button and performs their query, the AppXtender Connector presents them with a result set of documents that are available from the content repository. Users can select the document to display by double-clicking it. The connector will present that document inside a document viewer window. If this is a multi-page document, the users can select Next Element to view the next page in the document. Users can also select Next Document to move down the result set from their query. If a user has the rights, they'll be able to annotate these documents by selecting some of the popular annotation tools like highlighting or adding a note to a document. Users with scanners connected to their workstation will have the ability to scan and import pages to this document. And users will have access to view settings should they need to zoom in or rotate a document that perhaps was scanned in upside down or sideways. Users can also alter the index information for a document if they have the rights. So in this case, we've got a payment method of check. Perhaps this was incorrect and it needs to be cached instead. A user with the proper rights can change the information in these fields simply by typing the updated information into the fields and then clicking Save to save their changes. Once a user performs an ad hoc query task, they have the opportunity to save this task. So if they come to work every day and they're always responsible for a certain set of invoices, or they're always working on a certain project, they could save this task, and that would become a new task in their task list, which you'll see later when we attach that to a taskbar button. It will facilitate the user just coming into the office in the morning, clicking a button, and presenting them with the results from their task. The out-of-the-box configuration also includes an ad hoc import task, and when a user clicks this button for the ad hoc import task, they're presented with a window and several options of ways to import documents into the AX repository. They can select a document from their file system. They can clipboard paste information that might be on their Windows clipboard. Users can screen scrape information from other applications. And users with attached scanners will have the ability to click the Scan button and scan in documents, including image enhancement of those documents. Once a user has performed the steps to capture their content, they will click the Next button. The AppXtender Connector will present them with options for either creating a new document in the content repository, replacing a page, adding a new page, or versioning a page in the repository. If the user selects New Document, the AppXtender Connector will present them with options for selecting the database and the document repository that they will be uploading this document to. Once they select the content type, the AppXtender Connector awaits their indexing information to store the document into the system. These fields, just like the AppXtender clients that are already available, can be set up as required fields. They can be set up as automatically populated by a key field, and they could be selected with drop-down lists, as you saw with the check, if you wanted to select a drop-down item for your users. So there's several options for configuring these fields. When the user clicks Next, they are presented with a screen where, just as in the ad hoc query task, they could save this task. So if they're constantly performing the same task, they could save this task and then add that task as a toolbar item to their toolbar, and they won't have to go through all of the redundant steps again. Now let's look at configuring the AX connector. It's a highly configurable tool that allows the users and administrators additional functionality way beyond just the basic query and import tasks. Users and administrators can add toolbar buttons to the AppXtender Connector toolbar. We'll click the Configuration button, select the Toolbar Buttons menu item. These are the existing toolbar buttons. We will click the plus sign to add a toolbar button. We can select an existing icon from the stored cache, or we can add an icon to that cache and select this one. In this example, our user is going to add a toolbar button that queries for invoices from the AP application. We can assign a hotkey to our application button and click Apply. This adds the toolbar button to the AppXtender Connector. The next step would be to assign a task to this toolbar button so that when the user clicks the Invoices button, it actually performs the query that we've requested. To do that, we will click the configuration setting once more. We will select the Tasks menu item. We'll click the plus sign to add a new task. We will name this Query for Invoices. We will attach it to our toolbar button, and we'll set the options to perform our query. Now, we can select to automatically execute the query, or we can leave this box unchecked, and that will present the query fields to the user. In this case, we're going to allow it to automatically execute the query because we're selecting a saved query for this example. We're selecting the AppXtender demo, we select the accounts payable application, and we select the save query for invoices. We can now click Apply, click OK, and this toolbar button will automatically query the back-end repository for all invoices in the accounts payable application. The user is now viewing all the invoices in the accounts payable application. In this next example, we're going to configure a toolbar icon that allows the user just to drag and drop a PDF onto a toolbar button, and it will automatically then present them with the indexing fields to index and store inside the content repository. So first we need a toolbar button. We'll click Configure. We'll click the toolbar button menu item. We're going to click the plus sign to create a new toolbar button. We're going to change that icon to one that's stored in our cache, which is a PDF icon. And this will be our Import to Statements application. We'll give it a hotkey. Now we have the toolbar button ready. We need to create the task to attach to that toolbar button. So we'll click the wrench to configure. We'll move to tasks, and we'll add a new task. This task will be called Import to Statements. We will select our statement toolbar button, and we're going to import from a dropped file. So we'll be able to drag and drop the file right onto the icon. Our input source is going to be our AppXtender demo database. Our content type is going to be statements. Now these three fields are required, so the user is going to be presented with some index fields that they have to enter on those documents. We'll click Apply, and we'll click OK. Now we will test our toolbar button. Now this, I just happen to have configured this with a PDF, but this would work with any document. So we're going to grab this statement PDF here, and we're going to drag it over the icon and let go of it. And you can see that the PDF appears in the viewer window. And if we click Next, the AppXtender Connector is presenting the user with the options for either creating a new document, a new page, replacing a page, or adding a new version. So we'll select New Document, and here's the invoicing information that it's waiting for me to enter. These first three fields are bold, so they are required. And these extra fields here are not required, but we'll enter them in for the purposes of this demo. Now that document has now been imported into the statements container inside the AppXtender repository. By now you should be seeing some of the power that the AppXtender Connector gives to our user community. In this example that I've done, I created a toolbar button that queries automatically for invoices inside the Invoices application. And I created a toolbar button that would allow users to simply drag and drop documents to the toolbar and have them automatically presented with index fields to upload into the particular content repository. Okay, in this next section, we're going to show you how the AX connector can be used to capture data from a document during that import process. And we're going to use the print process. So the AX connector comes with a utility that allows a user to print a document in either PDF format or print to TIFF format, and at the same time you can capture information from that document and use that information as index values inside the content repository. Okay, so on our AX connector toolbar, we have a button called Student Records. And if we click the configuration setting, we can look at the configuration that's been set up for this particular button. We're going to go to Tasks, Student ID Cards, and we can see that we've configured this to import a document, capturing it from a printed file. And during that import, we're going to capture the student ID and the last name from the document. So that's the configuration settings. Let's go watch how this works. So our user is going to select the document, which is student ID cards. They're going to select print. And from the print menu, they're going to choose the AppXtender Connector Document Writer. Now, this is the tool that we already spoke about that will allow a user to print a document and turn it into either a PDF or a TIFF image during the import. And on this particular workstation, we've configured it to turn this Excel spreadsheet into a PDF. So we'll click OK to print that document. This document is now printed to the AppXtender Connector. Here it's waiting for the user. It's also been turned into a PDF. This is Adobe's Toolbar. We'll click Next, and the user's presented with the opportunity to create a new document, replace a page, add a page, or version a page. We'll select New Document. At this point, the capture process is capturing the information that we told it to pull from the document, which is student ID and the student's last name. So it captured the student ID 32323 and the user's last name Hill. We'll click Next, and this document has now been imported into the AX content repository and automatically indexed. Now, if we want to view this document in the content repository, we can use the Ad Hoc Query tool to do that. So we'll right-click on the icon in the system tray. We'll select the AppXtender demo. We'll select the content type student ID or student records. And we'll enter the last name Hill. Click Search. And in the results set, we see all the documents that were captured for Hill. And if we open this, this is the one we just recently imported. So here's the student ID card as a PDF file inside the content repository. Okay, in this next example, we're going to capture data that's on Windows Clipboard. We're going to use that data to perform a query. Now, many companies want to do exactly this. They're inside their line of business application. They're looking at perhaps an invoice number or a purchase order number or a customer name, and they'd like to find all the documents associated with that value. So in this next section of the presentation, we are going to open up a line of business application. We're going to copy data from that line of business application to Windows Clipboard, and we're going to use that to perform a query. Okay, so first let's open up our accounting application. And this particular one happens to be a terminal services application. We do have many different terminal emulators that the utility can be integrated with, and a list of those are in the documentation, the AX Connector Administrative Guide. In this particular example, it is a terminal services application. It happens to be one that's not listed as supported in the admin guide, but I'm not integrating with the terminal services application. I'm simply using Windows Clipboard and nothing else. So what you're getting ready to see would work with this application. It would work with Outlook. It would work with Microsoft Word. It will work anywhere you can copy a value to Windows Clipboard. So we've got the application open. And on our toolbar, we have an activity configured for our accounting program. So this is the accounting icon. And what this task is going to do, let's click the configuration settings so you can see the task. This task is going to query for a document. It's automatically going to execute the query, so it's not going to present the user with query fields. It's going to query the accounts payable application, and it's going to use the PO number that we're going to copy to Windows Clipboard to perform that query. So that's what this task is doing. So we'll come over here to our application. We're going to highlight CV443, and I'm hitting Control-C on my keyboard to copy it to Windows Clipboard. And then I only need to click the accounting button on the toolbar, and it's automatically performed that query and brought us back all the documents that happen to match that purchase order number CV443. So there's no programming involved in this, so companies can integrate with their content repository. They're able to be in their other application, whether it's accounting, whatever line of business application they have, and they can highlight a value and find all the documents, immediately have those documents brought to screen from the content repository without even opening the AppXtender interface. In this next section, we're going to explore the AppXtender Inspector Toolbar. And what this toolbar allows a user to do is to, when they're viewing an HTML page, a web page, they can select a value from that web page and then use that data that was selected and highlighted to perform a query inside the content repository and bring back all the documents related to that. So it's going to work with a web page, and it would work with any application that happens to be based on HTML pages. So let's go explore how this works. In this scenario, our user is going to be querying for documents that are inside the content repository based on a value that they're capturing from a web page. So we've got this icon that we've added to the AppXtender Connector toolbar, and when a user clicks that, it's going to pull information from a web page to perform the query. So let's go look at the setup that's behind the scenes. This is something the user won't necessarily see, but just so you understand what's getting ready to happen. When we go to the Tasks tab and we click Web Browser, we can see that it's automatically going to execute the query. It's going to grab the information from a web page. It's going to query the AppXtender demo database. It's going to query the patient records application, and it's looking for patient ID. That's the information we're capturing from a web browser. So that's how it's set up. So what we're going to do is open a patient information application. It happens to be a web-based application where we're looking at patient data. So we're going to use the Social Security. Now to do that, you use the AppXtender Connector Inspector. So we'll click this button. We'll click the Social Security number. You can see that it's captured that information. And then we only have to go to our toolbar button and click the icon. And it did that query for the patient information, and it brought back the documents related to that patient. Use the toolbar icon for this, but you can also use the system tray icon. So we're going to move from this patient to the next patient, which happens to be Dave Frank. Here's the name, Dave Frank. And we're going to use this Social Security number to do a query, but this time we're going to click that item, and instead of using the toolbar, we're just going to use the system tray. So I right-click, I say Query from Web Page, and it's brought me back all the information related to that patient ID for David Frank. And I can click this link and open up Dave's documents. So this is a pretty beneficial tool because it's going to be used with any web page or any web application where you can scrape that information right from the web page elements. So it's actually examining the element on the page. So that's why when I clicked this connector, you saw the red squares going around the page. So any of these elements could be used for a query. And we just happened to base this presentation on the Social Security number, but we could have done a query based on the city, state, or patient's last name if that's how we had set it up. Deploying the AppXtender connector. Okay, in this section we're going to show you how an administrator will use a tool called the Deployment Manager to create custom deployment packages that the users will install. So, we've gone through a lot of configuration settings as I was doing this demonstration, but ideally an administrator would configure a deployment package and then push that out to the user's workstation. So most users won't be going through all the settings. They will just have that toolbar pre-configured, and it will do exactly what they need it to do because the administrator will set that up in advance. So in this situation, we're going to show you how an administrator will create and publish a deployment package for a user profile. Now, the first thing that an administrator will do when they're getting ready to create a deployment package is that they will need to create the configuration. So during this presentation, we've done several settings here on this toolbar, and we've basically created a configuration that we're going to use for this presentation. So an administrator will go in, they'll configure that connector toolbar and those buttons to be the configuration that they need for a certain department. Maybe it's accounts payable, maybe it's HR. We're going to use the configuration that we've already created today. So we'll click the wrench item, the toolbar configuration item, and we're going to click this icon to save the configuration that we have out to a location that we can then later use for our staff. So we'll save it here. And the export's done. And now that we have our configuration settings saved to a file, we're going to create a deployment package and use those configuration settings so that we can deploy this out to multiple users. So we'll click Start, Programs, Desktop, Connector, Deployment Manager. We're going to click the new icon to create a new deployment package, and we're going to name it. Now this could be named, again, accounts payable if it's for the accounts payable team, HR. You can put version names in here if you want to keep track of your versions. So we're just going to call it AppXtender Settings version 1. We have the chance here to change our versioning if we want to. We're going to pick the location to where we're publishing this package. Now normally this published location is a URL because that way you can just send the users a hyperlink, and when they click it, it'll automatically install on their machine. So we're going to plant this inside our inet pub directory on the machine inside a folder called AppXtender. When we have these packages, we can specify how many versions that we want to keep. So if we want one version, we can leave it at 1, that's the latest only, or we can go ahead and tell the system to store 5 of them. That's going to help you if you ever need to regress back to a previous version. If an administrator updates one of these configuration settings, you've got update settings here to choose when that client side should check for updates. So should they do it before the application starts, after it starts? How often do you want to check for updates? We're just going to accept the default settings today, but if you want more information about these fields, then you can refer to the AppXtender Connector Administrator Guide. Now you need a signing certificate because this validates that the install package is it's verified. It's not something that's coming in with a virus from another location. So you want to create this certificate if you don't already have one. We're going to create a test certificate today, and we're going to name it AppXtender Certificate. AppXtender Settings. So we'll click Save. And that has now created a certificate, so this package is signed and it's verified as coming from the source. You can do a timestamp if you want from a timestamp server. Here's where we're going to import the settings that we exported out a few minutes ago. So we'll click Choose File. Now we saved these in a folder on the desktop, so here's the file that we just saved a few minutes ago. And we could run the connector and verify and modify those configuration settings if we want to, but we're okay with those settings. So now we just need to click Publish, and that is publishing this connector package out to a location where an end user can import it. You can see by the status bar down here that we're still waiting for the publish to finish. the package was published successfully. Now let's install the deployment package on our client machine. So now that this deployment package has been published successfully to a website, all you have to do to get it to install to a user's machine is either push out the deployment package to their machine, or even easier, just send them a hyperlink to that. So this is the address. We published it to the AppXtender folder under inetpub. We called it AppXtender Settings version 1, and here is the actual connector.application. So you'd send a user this hyperlink either via email or any other method that you have for distributing information on your network. And when they go to that location, it's actually going to launch the installation for them. So we'll click Install, and it's installing the connector to our local machine with all the settings we've configured today. And if we go here, we can see that the connector has now been installed to this machine. Prior to running the connector application package, I actually removed the connector from this workstation. So it won't let you install it if it's already on the workstation. It'll tell you that version's already there. So I uninstalled it, ran the installation again, and here is the connector toolbar that we have worked so hard to configure today. Today's presentation has covered many of the out-of-the-box configuration settings that are available for the AppXtender Connector. An administrator, though, can develop extensions using C# or Visual Basic, so you can get even more power out of this software. For detailed information about these extensions, you can consult the AppXtender Connector Administrator Guide. The AppXtender does include Visual Studio templates to facilitate an administrator creating these extensions, and there's 4 types of extensions that are available. They can create a capture method, a pre-processing extension, a post-processing extension, or a custom condition extension. So there are, I said, examples in the AppXtender Connector Administrative Guide. So you will want to consult that guide if you want additional information about extending the power of the software. So this ends our presentation today about the AppXtender Connector. If you have any more questions or you need more information about this connector or EMC software in general, then please reach out to your EMC Sales Representative, and they will put you in contact with the people that you need to speak with in order to get full value out of your EMC software. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great day.